welcome to Iron Dinos. I'm Shaun, I'm still playing Metroid Zero Mission, and we're going through Metroid games one by one that I have played. And today we're going to be talking about Metroid 2 Return of Samus for the Game Boy. A game I feel, with that and other maybe now Federation Force, they're kind of the ones that don't get talked about so much. When they do, they're not exactly talked about in the most glowing of regards. And as far as Metroid 2 Samus Returns goes, I think that's incredibly unfair. I think it is a tremendously underrated game. I played it for the first time early this year, on emulation, of course, because have you seen what that game goes for now? I don't even have a Game Boy anymore. I do have a Super Game Boy. Never got this for it. It's a recurring pattern through my early gaming years that I just, for some reason, didn't get Metroid. But yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed it for the hardware it was on. I guess I'd compare it somewhat to Super Mario Land 2. Like, Super Mario Land is what you would expect a Game Boy Mario game to look like. And Super Mario Land 2 absolutely knocks it out of the park. It blows the first one completely out of the water in every way, shape or form. They're not in levels of quality and the pure technical achievement of what they managed. There's absolutely no comparison between them. And I think quite similarly to Metroid 2 itself. I think it's an absolutely fantastic game, and my mind is absolutely boggled as to how they got that thing onto the Game Boy, let alone running as smoothly as it did. I could certainly say maybe the view is a little close to Samus. I'm guessing that's a way they got around the technical limitations. They put the camera, less on screen, allows you to do more. But no, I absolutely love my time with it. So the story in this one's a pretty simple one. The Galactic Federation basically decide that the Metroids are too dangerous a species to exist, and so they send a team of researchers to their home planet of SR388 to look into exterminate them. They then send another team of researchers, and then they send in the soldiers, and contact is lost with all of them. So of course they have to contact Samus Aran. Their thinking basically being, well, she's dealt with the Metroids before, she can probably help at this time. Whereas it should be, we sent her to have a look into this thing and she wiped out an entire planet full of space pirates and like all of their leaders and everything like that. But yeah, so obviously they send in Samus. Of course they do. She's the universe's premier badass. So she heads down into the network of caves to exterminate the Metroids. I quite like the fact that this game is set up kind of like the first one, I guess. It's quite similarly, it's all kind of a series of caves underground, whereas this time it feels a lot less civilized. And then you find a load of Chozo ruins and stuff, because of course Samus got to get her upgrade somewhere underground. And the difference between the cave areas and the Chozo areas really play well off each other. Like, it really looks like there's some weird kind of ancient culture who have built their temples deep within like this cave system. But I digress. So the basic idea is you go around an area, there are X amount of Metroids in it, you have to kill all them, and then for some reason that drains the highly corrosive acid that basically fills the path forward. Once enough Metroids are killed, that just magically drains because reasons, and then you can continue on in your adventure. However, there is a bit of a trick to this, because you come up against your first Metroid and then you realise that that's actually a larval stage. Throughout the game, as you venture further, you find more and more of these evolved Metroid states. So, the one that we all know, like big membrane, couple of talons on the bottom, grabs onto you, is like an energy vampire. So, the Alpha Metroids are probably roughly the same size as a normal Metroid, maybe a bit smaller, but they're insectoid with like pincer talons, short legs on the underside, and have a big rounded membrane from the first form at the bottom beneath them, which is the huge glowing weak spot. They're about 2/3 Samus size, so you kill a few of them, and then she finds an Alpha Metroid that basically mutates in front of her eyes. It's a Game Boy, basically. There's a couple of frames of it getting bigger and then the change shape. It evolves into a Gamma Metroid. These are larger than the previous form, about same size as Samus, but they're quite ball-shaped. Carapace and pincers are much larger, as are the legs, which kind of swoop in underneath to look kind of like the talons, actually. The membrane is still visible, but far more protected. And they can now generate electricity as an attack. Also, all of these forms just fly around and fly into Samus as their primary, way of doing damage. It is a Game Boy game. These are predominantly the boss battles of the game, and as much as I did love this game and did enjoy my time with it, by and large their attack patterns are quite similar, which is fly into Samus, and when they start gaining attacks, use distance attacks as well. They do have varying speeds, but for the most part they're kind of much a muchness. Only they take dramatically more hits to kill as we continue on. So anyway, that's an aside, but that's kind of covering that. So she later she fights several Gamma Metroids. They kind of intersplice the first couple of forms together, and then one of them the back of it cracks open to release a Zeta Metroid, which is bipedal and quite frankly looks like a turtle, like a weird turtle. They're still quite round, with long back legs, short front appendages and a tail. Membrane is still visible in the stomach area, but very slightly, remains its vulnerability. And they're about the same size as Samus, but now they can spit fire or acid or something, as well. So we're now getting tougher, and then eventually she finds what seems to be a Metroid nest with a Zeta floating around in it, and that evolves up into an Omega Metroid, which is similar to the previous form, but much taller, larger, bulkier, significantly slower than the previous versions, but take a ridiculous amount of damage to kill. As has been the case, the membrane is very much hidden, concealed to limit the damage they take. It's much larger than Samus, and can shoot fireballs that then explode. And finally, having worked her way through all of that, she'll discover the Queen Metroid, which is a gigantic creature. A little bit like, well, it's still quite kind of turtle-like. A bit like the quote-unquote ultimate life form from Sonic Adventure 2. That's a whole thing. I'll do a talk on Sonic at some point. That's a whole thing, but yeah, kind of like that. But like, looks much cooler. That was just an amorphous kind of blobber thing. But whatever. Yeah, it's got like, so it's got this like almost crocodile-y mouth, head, like this enormous mouth lined with teeth. Long neck with, actually it's kind of dinosaur-like. Whatever. It's got a long neck, 4 large kind of bent clawed appendages to move itself around, which it doesn't do in this game. A big kind of rounded body, the great big membrane under it, but it's completely sealed underneath it. She shoots fire from her mouth and attacks primarily by biting. She's very, very fast. Unbelievably durable. So, like, I think she takes something like 120 rockets if you're just rocking her, and that can only be done by firing into its mouth. It is an insane boss fight. It's so ridiculous, actually, that when I was fighting it, I was fighting it for like 10-15 minutes or something, and I actually popped online to the, because I was wondering if I was even hurting it. I was like, well, what is going on? But no, that's how you fight it. You can go into a ball and bomb inside her, which is a lot does significantly more damage, but it's quite hard to do that. You've kind of got to hit her in the right way to freeze her mouth in place, and then you can roll up in there and do the more damage. But I found that trickier than just kind of screw jumping to avoid her projectiles and then just shooting her directly in the face. Also along the way, there's one random sub-boss, which is kind of odd. It's called Arachnus. It's called Arachnus, right? And you find it's so, you know, when you find a power-up, there's the big Chozo statue with the ball. It's disguised as one of those balls, and it just kind of bounces at Samus, and when it stands up, it looks like a cross between a weevil and an armadillo. That's another thing you fight. Other than that, it's kind of variations on the monsters you found in the first one, so it's not I don't think, because it doesn't feel and doesn't play exactly like the first one because of the limitations of the Game Boy and the various very clever ways they've got around that. So it feels like more without feeling like just more of the same. Certainly not to the degree that Super Metroid managed to pull that off, because, oh god, I can't wait to talk about that next. But, you know, they just threw in a random extra. They just throw up one random extra boss for some reason. Weird. Probably because they had that cool idea for having it, having it disguised as a bull. Anyway, so as with all Metroid games, there are a number of upgrades, a lot of them returning from the previous game. But unlike most of your Metroid games, she actually starts with some powers. They haven't. Well, I know the in-canon universe, I believe, is that she leaves them in a ship. She depowers when she finishes a mission, so then she doesn't go back to her ship to just re-equip them. She has to find them again in the chosen. It's a video game. There's got to be video game logic in there. But yeah, so she actually starts with the morph ball, the long beam, and a bunch of missiles just to get you started. But it also introduced, and a few come back, but it also introduced some new stuff. The space jump allows Samus to kind of spin jump infinitely, which is how you get to the end of the game, actually. You kind of have to, like, there's all these chambers with these big high ceilings. You have to get right up to the top and kind of maneuver your way all the way around them, which is pretty cool. And it also introduces the spring ball, which allows Samus to jump when in ball form, which is very handy, and the spider ball, which I found really impressive. Like, if you've played Metroid games, you know what the spider ball is. It allows you to attach to certain surfaces and maneuver around them. But in this one, it's pretty much all surfaces. So, like, any cavern you're in, you can just attach to the wall and just maneuver all around it. Provided you don't get hit. Well, once you take a hit, you fall, but you can kind of go around pretty much any area and any cavern in the entire game. Just as much as you want, because there's nothing... So once you got the spider ball, there's pretty much nothing stopping you. So that's pretty goddamn awesome. However, there's one thing she can't destroy throughout the game, which is this... there's like this substance that shows up towards the end of the game. It's kind of like... It almost looks like a mesh. You find some baby Metroids feasting on it. And that's the big finale to our tale. You fight the giant Queen Metroid. And there's a final egg. Samus has the opportunity to rid the universe of the Metroids forever. And this little baby Metroid hatches and imprints on her. Following her around, Samus doesn't immediately gun it down. It starts eating this mesh, allowing her to free. And obviously the planet's getting ready to explode at this point. Of course it is, because you know, it's a Metroid game. You've got to get out of there quickly. But yeah, the game ends with Samus taking the last Metroid onto her ship with her, and I'm guessing the idea was for that to be the future of the series. Wherever we went from there, I guess the idea was that it was going to be Samus with her little companion Metroid floating around her, and aiding her. That's not how things shook up, which we'll get to in the next episode. I thought I could get up there. In the next episode, where we talk about Super Metroid. But yeah, I loved Metroid 2. I thought it was an entirely entertaining experience. Again, the lack of map didn't really help, but is what it is. But yeah, I thought it was a really, really fun time. Very, very challenging. The various other Metroids kind of were the downside. Like, conceptually, I'm not really a fan of the mutations. I don't think a lot of people are. Like, they become less of a threat with each mutation. Sure, they take more hits, but like, they just turn into big bullet sponge lizard things. And I'm not a big fan of that as artificial difficulty, the bullet sponge. It bores me. I get tired of just shooting endlessly into the same thing. With the exception, even with the Queen. Like, the Queen was horrifying enough that I lasted a bit longer than on her before getting bored. But even so, even with that, it was still a case of I had to check to make sure I was actually doing damage to her, and that's not the best. But do you know what? For a game on the Game Boy, I think it's an incredibly impressive thing. Oh, hello. We're going to open up the final area, head towards Mother Brain. I don't know what I'm going to do for the next couple of parts after this, as I've still got several games to talk about. Maybe I'll go search for secrets and stuff, because I've got a couple of games left to talk about. Ah, another cool little cutscene. Here we go. So they look so cool like that. I don't think they look cool in the other forms. They don't look anywhere near as cool anyway. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Metroid 2. It is... I genuinely think it is an underappreciated gem, and any fan of the series should go out of your way to play it. As I mentioned in the previous video, I have just got Samus Returns, but I think it's probably going to be more apt to talk about that in the Metroid Dread episode. I did debate putting it on the end here, but I think it's going to be more appropriate there because they, the team that made Metroid Samus Returns, the team that made Metroid Samus Returns is the team that made Metroid Dread, or by and large, you know, same. And a lot of the innovations from that, carried over into Dread. It's insofar as it feels a lot more like Dread than it does Metroid 2. So I think it's better to talk about that in there. And I don't have a lot to say about it anyway. It's like a beautiful combination of Metroid 2, which I really, really liked, and Metroid Dread, which I really, really, really fucking liked. So we'll come on to that when we come to Dread, which will probably be the last or the one from last episode of this. But yeah, join me next time. We'll be talking about what I imagine for most people is the big one. We'll be talking about Super Metroid, and I'm not going to say we're going to go beat Mother Brain, because you saw how I handled Kraid. Ridley was fine though. Ridley was fine. But if you played the original Metroid, you're going to know that this is the bit that it gets really hard. Like, it's quite tricky. A lot of it is quite tough. But this is where it ramps up quite considerably. So either the next bit is going to be disappointingly easy, or I'm going to get my ass kicked a lot, and you'll have something fun to laugh at me in the background while I'm talking about Super Metroid, and probably reaffirming everything you already think about that game, because if you made it this far and we get to the point of Super Metroid, you probably already know where we're going, and that is a great big pile of love. So see you next time. I love Metroid.